ever met somebody who could read hearts or souls? I remember when I was in the Philippines, I wasn't a priest yet. I went to a retreat, and there I went to a priest for confession. And I didn't know that this priest has the gift of reading souls. So when I was about to confess, he was the one who confessed my sins. One by one, he was confessing my sins, and I was like saying, yeah, yes. And on one side, I was like amazed by this gift of reading souls. But at the same time, I was so afraid, because it's as if like I'm naked and I'm exposed and just feeling that shame, right? And I'm sure many of you could identify with that, right? If you know somebody who could read our souls, we're kind of being exposed. And there's that fear of maybe being judged. Maybe there's a fear of what will people think of us if they see what's really inside. Okay? And that's why I know there are Catholics who do not go to their parish priest for confession. They will go to another parish and then do their confession there. I don't know if that's your case. But maybe there's a reason behind that, right? Maybe they're afraid, what will my parish priest think of me if I confess these sins? Right? So there's fear there. And underneath that fear is shame. Okay? And two saints who could really read souls are Saint Padre Pio and Saint Jean Marie Vianney. Even though they could read souls, people were flocking towards them. Saint Jean Marie Vianney would listen to hear confession 16 hours a day. Right? These people were not afraid to bare their souls to these two priests because they know that they would experience the love and mercy of God through them. They know that they will not be judged. They know that they will not feel condemnation. That's why they would go to these two saints. And Jesus also has this gift, right? Jesus also has this gift of reading souls. In John chapter 4, remember, Jesus encountered this Samaritan woman on the well. And Jesus told her things about herself which she never told to others. Jesus could read her soul. In Hebrews chapter 4, verse 13, it says, "And there is no creature hidden from his sight, but all things are naked and open to the eyes of him to whom we must give account." The Lord knows what's in our heart. He sees it clearly, okay? And yet, He continues to love us. When Jesus was entering Jerusalem on Palm Sunday, He knew what was on the heart of the people there. People who were laying down their cloaks, putting down branches. It's like spreading a red carpet for Jesus to walk in Jerusalem. And they were praising, "Hosanna, Hosanna." But they knew, Jesus knew what's in their heart. He knew that these people were praising Him because they thought that they would be the Savior who would save the Jews from Roman occupation. And Jesus would be their king. And when they realized that that won't happen, these people will be the one who would shout, "Crucify Him, crucify Him, crucify Him." You just feel the pain in the heart of Jesus. At the Last Supper there, Jesus knew who would betray Him, right? He was sharing a meal. In the Jewish tradition, when you share a meal, it means intimacy. You're sharing a meal with your close friends. And yet He knew one of them would betray Him. He knew Peter would deny Him 3 times. He knew all of them would desert Him when He will be arrested. And yet He continued to love them. He washed their feet. Their stinking feet, He washed them. You see that love. At the agony of Jesus in the garden, He was deeply grieved even to death. And yet He saw 3 of His closest friends that they were putting their convenience and rest more important than to console Jesus. You know, on His way to the cross, He fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah in our first reading today. I gave my back to those who struck me, and my cheeks to those who pulled out the beard. You know, I just came back from a 5-day silent retreat in Combermere, and my retreat director asked me to do a Stations of the Cross. And I said, okay. So I did it last Friday, and I asked for the grace to be able to enter in to each station. That I spend like maybe 4 minutes each station. So it's like an hour and a half. I was doing the Stations of the Cross. And I could say I was able to enter in and I experienced the pain of Jesus. And it was deeply impressed upon me that it was my sins who made Jesus suffer. It was my sin who crucified Jesus on the cross. And yet, He bore it patiently, this great suffering, out of love for me. In fact, honestly, there was one point there in when I was doing the Stations of the Cross, I got emotional there. I got teary-eyed because of this great suffering of Jesus and His great love for me, that I want to love Jesus in return. Okay? And on the cross, you know, instead of Jesus resenting those who crucified Him, okay, He asked His Father, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing. Jesus is not just forgiving their sins, He was even making excuses for them, right? That the Father would forgive them. And how was Jesus be able to, how did Jesus was able to do that? And I think it's because He was able to experience the love of the Father. In John 15 verse 9, it says, as the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. He experienced the unconditional love of the Father. That's why He's able to love us in an unconditional way. Okay? And He showed this love through patient suffering. Patient, you know, in 1 Corinthians chapter 14, that's the love chapter, it says there, love is patient. Love is kind. The very first word there that symbolizes love is patient. And Jesus was patient. Okay? And He suffered, right? He suffered so much. And suffering, you know, when we love somebody, we're willing to suffer for the good of that person. And that's what Jesus did. Jesus did. He suffered on the cross for the good of us, for our salvation. That's why He suffered on the cross. That's why all of us are called to imitate Jesus in His patient suffering. What are we doing? How are we responding to the people who have harmed us? Now, I'm not saying we just let the abuse continue to happen. I'm not saying that. You know, if we need to put strict boundaries, we need to do that. But what the Lord is telling us is we need to love even our enemies, even those who have harmed us. Are we forgiving them? Are we loving them? I know it's hard, but Jesus was able to do it, and He's giving us the grace to be able to do it as well. What are we doing with the cross that that God is giving us? Are we running away from our cross? Or are we embracing it with patient suffering? And for us to be able to do that is for us, first and foremost, to experience the love of Jesus in us. Because Jesus said, love one another as I have loved you. He is the source of that love. And as we experience that love from Him, we will be able to love God and love others through patient suffering.